Hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible Verse by Verse, a plain and simple study of the entire Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. Currently, we are going through First Chronicles, and we are spending the first 9 chapters going through the genealogy, the very extensive Jewish genealogies. As I said, the main purpose is to establish the bloodline of Jesus, and then secondly, the bloodline of the tribes of Israel, individual Jews, and their heritage. In other words, you would know, if you were Jewish during this time especially, and then you would know, I think it serves for 2 points. One, you know who you are, and you certainly know who you're not. So for example, if you were born in the tribe of Dan, you know that you're not the Messiah. You're not, and you don't have and you're not heir to the throne. All right. So and then so as again, let me just say as I pull it up, I'm not going to go through every detail here because it is long, and we're only on chapter 3. I'm sorry, yeah, chapter 3. And oh, am I? Wait a minute, yeah. So we still got 9 chapters, and again, so we're going to gloss over a lot of this, but some of these I've been kind of going through. Let's see how far we get today with some of these genealogies. All right, so let's go. Verse 1: These were David's sons that were born to him in Hebron. Amnon was the firstborn by Ahinoam the Jezreel. Daniel was born second by Abigail of Carmel. Now we don't know all of these because again, they just wasn't in the sense that David had a lot of sons, by the way. But we do, verse 2, we are familiar with Absalom, the son of Maacah, and then Adoniah, the son of Haggith, was fourth. Let's get down to some of the ones that are going to be most important. Verse 5, these sons were born to him in Jerusalem. Now, a lot of these lists of sons were born before David came to Jerusalem and reigned over all of Israel. So these are some that were born to him: Shema, Sobah, Nathan, and Solomon. Of course, and then it said these 4 were born to him by Bathsheba, daughter of Amiel. Now, Bathsheba was Bathsheba. We kind of know that this was the one he had the affair with. He ended up killing her husband at the time, Uriah, which was one of his 30 men. The first child was stillborn. Stillborn. And then Solomon was born. And then Solomon, of course, is the one we're most interested in because God said through Solomon, again, the bloodline would continue. Verse 9, these were all David's sons with their sister Tamar, in addition to the sons by his concubines. A lot of sons there. A lot of sons. Okay, so verse 10, Solomon's son was Rehoboam. So after the kingdom, Solomon's son, it talks about here Rehoboam and his son Abijah, his son Asa. These are the kings. We've just came out of kings. So these are all the bloodlines. Asa, the son of Josaphat, son of Jehoram, Joram. His son was Ahaziah, son of Joash, son of Amasa. Ahaziah, son of Jotham. Ahaz, the son of Hezekiah, the son of Manasseh, the son of Ammon, the son of Josiah. Remember, Josiah was prophesied almost 300 years before his birth, by name. And it says Johanan was the firstborn, Jehoiakim second, and Zedekiah the third, and then Shallum fourth. Now, this brings us, of course, up to the exile. And notice, after the exile, says the son of Jeconiah, the captive. So he was actually in captivity. I want to say almost some 30 years. He was set free and lived the rest of his life, kind of, in peace. His son Shealtiel and then Malcolm, Padon, Shinar, Jachinah, Homeshah. These were people after the Babylonian Empire. We'll get more into some of these names when we get to the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. Okay, Pediah, sons of Zerubbabel, and Shemiel. So we'll get to these after, when we get to those books. Let's go to chapter 4. It says Judas' son Perez. Remember now, this is overlap. So he's kind of go back. If you think about Judas' sons, so we're going back to the time of Israel. Okay, so in the book of Genesis, so Perez, Hamaz, and then he lists now Perez's genealogy. Okay, because again, this is the bloodline of Jesus. This is the one that we're most interested in. I want to read this one in verse 9 here. When he says, verse 9, let's go back to verse 7. Helah, sons of Joel, Zereth, and Zohar, and Itha. Cos fathered Anub, Zobanah, and the families of Ahira, sons of Hiram. And then he says here, verse 9, Jabaz was more honorable than his brothers. His mother named him Jabaz, and said, I've given birth to him in pain. Jabez called out to God of Israel, if only you would bless me, extend my borders, let your hands be with me and keep me from harm, so that I will not cause any pain. And God granted his request. The reason why I wanted to kind of just point this out, a number of years ago, a guy wrote a book solely on this verse of scripture alone called The Prayer of Jabez. He became a millionaire by this book because he basically titled the prayer that God always answered, and he cited this prayer. They came out with all kinds of, this book was so popular, and it was kind of that's interesting. It was called The Prayer of Jabez, and people fell for it and bought the books, thinking that if they pray this prayer, they're going to be like Jabez and become millionaires. Okay, literally, that's what the guy was teaching here. All right, but he's mentioned only here in the genealogy. Okay, he's mentioned only in the genealogy. All right. Let me go down. Okay, Simeon's descendants, Simeon's sons, and then did I miss something here? Let me go back. Jabez. Okay. He does mention Caleb again. Look at verse 15. The sons of Caleb, son of Jephunneh. That's Caleb that came out. He was one of the 12 spies that went during the book of Numbers. So it was Caleb and Joshua and then 10 other spies. The 10 spies came back, remember, and gave a bad report about Israel, that they couldn't inherit the land when God told them to go in. And Joshua and Caleb said, hey, trust God. Let's go in. Let's get it. And as a result, God said that because of the bad report, and Israel followed the bad report, he said that generation would not go into the promised land. They wandered 40 years in the wilderness, but God promised that Joshua and Caleb would go into the promised land. This is this Joshua right here. He also goes into the book of Judges. And at 80 years old, he was walking around like he was a 30-year-old man with the strength of a 30-year-old man. All right. Let's skip down here because Simeon's sons. And then where we at here? Let's go to chapter 5. This is Reuben's sons. Now Reuben is an interesting fellow because he says these were the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel. He was the firstborn, but his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, son of Israel, because Reuben defiled his father's bed. He is not listed in the genealogies according to the birthright. that although Judah became strong among his brothers and a ruler came from him, the birthright was given to Joseph. Now, this was sort of prophetic here, mention of Judah. We also see the birthright given to Joseph. Now, the term birthright or firstborn, okay, this is a good example of this. Typically, the oldest son usually had the first rights to what's called the firstborn. The firstborn would be the heir of the family. He would become the matriarch, and he would rule the family in a sense. He would be the head, make all the decisions. Okay. Some of the exceptions, of course, here was Joseph became sort of the head by providence. David, remember, was the youngest son, but he became sort of he inherited the firstborn. Reuben lost it because, remember, he slept with one of his father's concubines. And again, during this time, they were some ruthless fellows. The sons of Israel were ruthless. They were not godly by any means. So this is the bloodline of Reuben. Then you have the sons of Gad. Okay, the sons of Gad here. Then you have the half. Then you got the son of the half tribe of Manasseh, settled in the land of Bashan and Bethlehem. Remember, the half tribe settled on the other side of the Jordan. They did not go into the promised land. And then in verse 25 it says here, they were unfaithful to the God of ancestors. They prostituted themselves with the God of the nations, and God had to destroy them. So God, the God of Israel, put it in the mind of Pul, that is Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, to take the Reubenites, Gadites, half tribes of the Manasseh into exile, and he took them to Halah, Harbor, and Gozan, the Golden River, where they are today. Okay. So then you see the Levites. Now remember, the Levites did not have an inheritance. They were the priests. They had the service of the worship. Okay. And they took care of everything that was about the temple at the time, where the Levites would have been the tabernacle. Okay. So it says right here, so verse 2, Korah, sons of Aram, Asa, Hebron, Israel, Amram's children, and then it was Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. Aaron's sons, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ishmael. Now remember, Nadab and Abihu, they got drunk and offered strange fire, and they were actually, God killed them by fire. So then Eleazar became kind of the high priest after Aaron. Aaron was the first high priest. Okay. So these are all the priest genealogies. Interesting here, he says, verse 81, these are the men David put in charge of the music in the Lord's temple after the ark came to rest there. Now, only reason I'm kind of bringing this up is that they ministered with song in front of the tabernacle, the tent meeting, until Solomon built the Lord's temple in Jerusalem, and they performed their tasks according to the regulations given to them. These are the men who serve their sons. Kind of interesting that they're kind of listed. Here's the thing that I wanted to say about the music, that there are people who today would say that we shouldn't play musical instruments in the church. But anyway, verse 39, look at that. Haman's relative was Asaph. Now, the reason why I'm pointing out that name Asaph, if you read the book of Psalms, you kind of see that name a lot. But these were music. Now, these were Aaron's descendants, the relative Levites that were assigned to all the servants of the tabernacle and / God's temple. But Aaron and his sons did all of the work of the most holy place. They presented the offerings on the altar, the burnt offerings, and on the altar incense to make atonement for Israel according to all that Moses, the servant of God, had commanded. So these were the priests. Now we're going to see later on a good king, Uzziah, will get struck with lightning because he decided he was going to go in and offered when he didn't have offerings when he wasn't a priest. All right, so these are some of the settlements here. God told them to give towns. Okay, they were supposed to have towns. All right, look at this right here, chapter 7, and then it says Issachar's sons. These are his descendants. Benjamin's Benjamin's sons. Again, not going through all this Nefertiti, the descendants. Okay, and then Manasseh sons through the Aramean concubine. Now again, reason why we don't know too much about their name. Here's the interesting thing right here. Let me read this. Manasseh's son through Aramean the concubine. Arsa and Marsha the father of Gilead. Marsha took wives from Hippram and Sephram. The name of his sisters was Maacah. Another descendant was named Zelophehad, but he had only daughters. Maacah's wife Maacah gave birth to a son, and she named him Perez. His brother's name was Sherez, and his son's name were Olam and Rekem. Now, Zola, only reason why I wanted to bring Zola up is because she kind of came, her and her sisters came and said to Moses, hey, not Joshua, Moses, I'm sorry, that their father died of a sin, but it had nothing to do with Korah, but what about our inheritance? So they gave him inheritance, and then they later came and said, well, y'all have to keep the inheritance in the tribe here, so you can't marry outside the tribe. It's an interesting story. Ephraim's descendants here, and then Asher's descendants here. Okay. Let's go to chapter 8. Benjamin's descendants. As you can see, Benjamin, who was the youngest of Israel's sons. So we see a lot of his sons here. These are his genealogies. And then chapter 9. And I'm going to read through this kind of fast. Chapter 9 says, all of Israel was registered in the genealogies that are written in the book of the king of Israel. But Judas was exiled to Babylon because they're unfaithful. The first to live in their towns of their own property, again, were Israelites, priests, Levites, and the Lord's temple. Now, we're going to get to this when we get to some of these other Ezra and Nehemiah, okay? So, verse 3, these people from the descendants of Judah, Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh settled in Jerusalem. And then it gets some of their names again. And it also kind of gives some of how many people came back. So you see like here, like 690 of their relatives. And then we kind of skip down 900, look at verse 9, 956 relatives. And it goes on and on and on. And what you see is only a fraction of people that came back. Okay? Only a fraction of the people came back. Now he mentions Saul's family here. Okay? And verse 35 says, Judas father Gibbon who lived in Gibeon, Giel fathered Gibbon who lived in Gibeon. His wife's name was Maacah. Abdon was the firstborn son. Then Zer, Kish, Baal, Ner, Nadab, and then Gader, Ehud, Zechariah, and Maacah, Mikloth. And then Mikloth fathered Shemir. These also lived opposite their relatives in Jerusalem with their wife. Ner fathered Kish. Kish fathered Saul. And fathered Jacob. And then this is King Saul. Now the reason why I'm running out of time here. So the reason why I can't, this is important because even if you go back and you remember, long after Saul's death, long into David's rule, Shemiel came out when Absalom tried to overthrow David. Remember, he came back and was actually saying that the kingdom was going to be restored to his father Saul, or his relative Saul. Now, the reason why I say that is because this is why these genealogies were so important. Because, first of all, there was no lineage to the kingdom. Besides the prophetic word, okay? Besides the prophetic word. All right. So we're getting into chapter 10 in the next study. Like I say, I realized I just glossed through the genealogies. And like I say, if you want to go and do a more in-depth study of them, have at it. What is most important to us is the bloodline of Jesus from those genealogies, okay? All right, guys, I will see you in the next study. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next study.